So yeah, let's welcome each other. Let's start. Hugo, would you like to introduce yourself to the community?
Yeah, hi. So I'm Hugo Freud. I'm based in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm leading product operations at OLX Motors Europe. So it's one of our customer units in OLX. And yeah, we're talking about a marketplace, and I'm working with a product team of basically three tribes. So we're talking roughly about 20 packs or so. And yeah, that's me.
Great. Thank you for your introductions. Adam, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, my name is Adam Siegel. I'm the Senior Center of Excellence ProductOps Manager here at Pendo, based out of our Raleigh HQ. And yeah, I'm really focused on helping the product team and the business really kind of be the best users of our own products. Pendo, as you might know, is an analytics and app messaging solution. But as I'm going to kind of get into a little bit down the line, there's a ton of utility with installing it over a knowledge base and using it to identify, measure viewers, and share that data, those outcomes back with the business. So happy to be here. Thanks.
And my name is Ferit Sabitov. I'm Coder Community Champion. And the goal for this session is how to organize your product knowledge base, covering processes around knowledge management and why you need to invest in product knowledge base from a product ops perspective. So we have here a couple questions. We would like to hear from you. To what extent do you agree with the following statements? So we have three questions and we would love to get your answer. The way how you can reply or answer to this survey is just by clicking on this alignment scale. So the first question is, our product knowledge base is well organized, easy to search and consume. So please vote if you are strongly agree or strongly disagree. I see that some people already voted. Great. Let's switch to the next question. The next question is, our product knowledge base brings value to the company and effectively addresses inquiries from colleagues. Great. I see that some people already voted. And the last question is, there is a sufficient time and resources allocated for investment into our product knowledge base. And let's see the results. So for the first question, we can see that most of the people somewhere in the middle or closer to strongly disagree. And that will help us to understand, like, we can also discuss why it happens. Maybe from industry perspective, like the product knowledge base is still in early stages and we still didn't figure it out. The second question is, yeah, we can see that the results are the same, almost the same, that is in the middle or closer to strongly disagree. And we will speak about the metrics today. So hopefully we will be able to help you to communicate the impact of the product knowledge base. And the last one, oh, we can see one person, Paris, voted as strongly agree. So it looks like they have some resources to invest into their product knowledge base. So this is great news. But most of us, yes, we are more in the strongly disagree alignment scale. So let's go to the next exercise. We have here product knowledge base mastery level. So we just want to hear from you at what stage your current product knowledge base is. So here you will be able to see 5 levels. We have ad hoc storage, organized knowledge base, integrated knowledge base, scaled knowledge base, and future state of knowledge base. And by clicking on this simple vote button at the top, just vote once by clicking on the button. So we will be able to understand where our participants are at these mastery levels. Hugo, Adam, based on some of the observations that we've got from the audience, do you have any notes or highlights to share?
Adam, go ahead. I was going to say that I think that in general, nothing surprising there, because usually it's that type of thing that is handled, as a second thing that everyone does in their free time, trying to kind of organize it. And then looking at, for example, maturity levels in that, I was thinking it depends. So there's parts of the organization where I feel that, it might be at a high maturity level, but in other parts, you actually feel like it might be at a low maturity level. So yeah, it depends. It also depends on the side of the organization, I guess.
Agree. Agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, not surprised. I feel like when it comes to investing in a knowledge base, oftentimes the problem that you're trying to solve is just organizational pain, kind of just like intangible, not something you're really measuring intentionally. Everybody can feel that things aren't as solid as they should be. And we really just need to start writing some things down. So let's go ahead and do it. And then if you get some value out of that, then eventually you invest in it enough to do it on purpose. But yeah, without having kind of a clear goal from the beginning, it's tough to get investment and commit any kind of real time or people to setting it up.
Agree. So let's go through the first section that we have here is the reasons why do we need to invest. So I will just share a couple of things here, and then Adam, Hugo, please feel free to join and share your observations. I really liked one of the slides from Ilya Tragubov. He shared why exactly it's important to think about single source of truth regarding knowledge base, product knowledge base, or any other sources. When we have a lot of people within the organization, we have a lot of deliverables or resources that people are generating, but there is no place to connect things, and there is no one who is responsible for making sure that the knowledge is up to date and it's integrated or synthesized in the right way. We have two main issues here is time to knowledge. So when people are searching for a specific thing, it like requires them more time to find, for example, report out of specific user research or report regarding our customer feedback or something else. And there's another metric is risk of error. So if we will not spend time on organizing ourselves and capturing all the product knowledge base in one place, there might be some issues that people refer to specific insight or highlight or observation within our product knowledge base. But because it wasn't updated, we might have a higher risk of error. And by having this, by focusing on investing, structuring our product knowledge base, we can decrease amount of time that people are spending to search for knowledge or to search for some highlights or insights, and we can decrease amount of errors if we will spend time on investing on them. And here are some other highlights that it improves product quality, better onboarding experience for new employees. It facilitates knowledge sharing. If we will have dedicated place, people can share knowledge, people can contribute, people can review and share their feedback, as it screens efficiency and streamlines product development. Hugo, Adam, do you have any highlights that you would like to share here on the reasons why we need to invest? Maybe you have some interesting cases there.
Yeah. There's a kind of two situations that really kind of nail this one for me. One of them is just I've talked about this before, like the organizational lift you get from kind of going from 0 to 1. When you just don't have a source of truth and folks kind of rallying around a body of knowledge, then, I mean, the confidence that you kind of lose across the business, the velocity to kind of pick up and do things, whether that's process documentation, whether that's, product education, whether that's, clearly defining kind of how and when to use different tools in your tech stack. I mean, you're just going to just kind of torpedo your momentum in any area if you haven't really kind of set step one. Like, where do you even start? Where do you even begin to learn about these things? And then the other example is really when you're going through any type of organizational change. I mean, I think probably all of us have had some moment where one of the most tenured employees on a team leaves and you realize the amount of tribal knowledge that existed in that person's head. I think every company I've worked for, there's been someone or some group of people, and everyone has just begged them to write down everything they know somewhere. And that's essentially what this problem is solving is you don't need what's in that person's head. They don't need to be a Rolodex of information. They don't need to be human wiki. Access to information gets better. Velocity gets better. I mean, just write this stuff down. The lift to the entire organization, the burden that's taken off of individuals gets so much better when you just write everything down.
I was going to add maybe here, and it's along the lines of what was already discussed, but I think it's that whole concept of people don't have time, right? So people don't really have time to be sifting through, everything. And if it's not really structured and well organized, what happens is people will either take the quickest route, right? Which is just find the quick answer and hey, it's done. Or they'll spend hours and they'll give up, and then they'll actually end up bothering people, right? So then it's not just their time that they're using up someone else's time. And so it just expands that. So it becomes a complex thing across everyone where, you're just wasting each other's time because you have to bother this person or, If it's the documentation, you couldn't find what you're looking for, who has that? If we're talking to researchers, I'll just ask a researcher to do the research again because I can't find what I'm looking for. It's that type of stuff. It just becomes unmanageable. And then you get duplication, right? You get a lot of information that is actually being done over and over and over again. So the efficiency goes out the window.
Yeah, totally agree. We have a couple questions here, and some of the questions will be answered during our next. We just right here.
You're cutting up a bit, Farid.
Adam, Hugo, would you like to share first, or do you want me to start?
Whatever you feel makes more
Great.
sense.
Yeah. Okay. Let me start, and then we can also iterate and share some of the highlights here. So first of all, what are the different types of knowledge bases? Usually there are like multiple dimensions of how we could organize product knowledge base. I mean, any other like organizational intranet knowledge base. And we have here department knowledge base, shared resources, and product knowledge base. And as a part of product knowledge base, it's more focused about the product itself. The department knowledge base is focused about the ways how we work as a discipline. It could be product management or design or like any other different disciplines. And shared resources, places or knowledge bases where we are or sharing more things about the education or design systems or voice of the customer insights repositories as well. So here, I also shared some of the interesting like feature state integrations, I guess, but here I'm a fan of Coda, so I'm biased, but I would love to hear other people share their observations as well. But I feel like within the Coda is like a great place where you can integrate different sources of information, and because Coda has tags, you can integrate different sources. So we are not only speaking about the pieces of information, we are also speaking about the way how we can integrate the data source databases from other tools. So the experience could be more integrated. So as a part of like ProductOps, we could think about the ways how we could integrate company OKRs, product roadmaps, issue tracking, insights management, product metrics, competitive intelligence into one place where it could be Coda or any or Airtable, right? But this is the place where you can structure out the data structure, came up with your own dictionaries and map all the data and make sure that you have them all integrated. Here I also shared some ideas and slides on the information architecture for product knowledge base with some of the ways how you can organize your, again, product knowledge base in Coda or in other places as well, with some information of what kind of fields might be helpful and how you can like organize these different data sources and integrate them together around the products, around the market customers or the audience or the user segments that you are working with, around the experience map, how it will be connected to journey map or specific use cases, how you can create market players and track all their products as a part of competitive intelligence, etc. And also here we added a couple other ideas, what kind of information you could store within the product knowledge base. And maybe I should take a pause here and we could discuss all of that. Hugo, what do you think about the information architecture? What do you think about the product knowledge base itself?
Looking at so going there to what was it, the future state integration. I also think it'll depend. So there's two things here, which is one is depends on what information we want in there, right? So obviously we can use Coda or whatever tool to connect everything. We have to ask the question of whether we should connect everything, right? So that's another one. But either way, there are some tools that do a really good job of connecting roadmaps with OKRs, or at least some new players that are trying to do that, even with, product metrics and some insights and potentially even they then integrate with Jira to have obviously the flows or the integration with that. But when I think of the product knowledge base, I think we also have to take into consideration what the team is already using, right? And I mentioned this when we caught up recently, which is so many teams are using Jira, for example, right? So they will feel comfortable with Confluence, not because it's the best option, but because it's where they're working and it's what exists, right? And for a company, it's one license, so it's one product that you have to use. And so they'll feel comfortable just accepting that. And sometimes we have to adapt to that. So sometimes it's us adapting to the tools, other times it's the tools adapting to us. So it's a situation by situation basis, right? In that sense. Moving down to the part around the information architecture, I mean, this is a complex one. So this is a complex one because it also depends again on what kind of, product knowledge base we're setting up. And like you mentioned that there, and it's one of the things I shared previously, which was, it depends on if it's customer facing, if it's internal team facing, or if it's, for example, it's internal sales teams facing, right? So all of these have different knowledge bases or knowledge needs that we need to structure. And each one of them would probably have a different information architecture because, for example, if we're talking about sales or if we're talking about the customer facing, it'd be what is the job they want to get done, right? And how can we get them to solve that problem for the job that they want to get done? But when you're talking about the organization, or the internal stuff, it might be about the domain or the portfolio of the product, right? And it's the hierarchy is structured that way. It'll have to adapt. But at the same time, if we want to connect the two, then we have to have this adaptive process in the background that will adapt to both realities, right? So I think that's an interesting conversation to be had around that. Adam, feel free to add anything.
Everything Hugo said, absolutely nailed it. One other consideration that I'd throw in there is particularly from our seat in kind of ProductOps, as we're kind of facilitating and helping everybody coordinate, do their jobs better, is just considering the maturity of the team, of the organization. One of the things that I try to be sensitive to is, folks, oftentimes new teams or teams that have just undergone a lot of change they're not ready to grok kind of even like a unified information architecture, unified knowledge base like this, adding single kind of data points, if you're adding dovetail and you're adding research insights to, a marketing team's processes as they're coming up with how they're going to deliver new messaging. I mean, they've got an established playbook, an established process that they're trying to run. And now including this entire kind of research loop into their process is going to foundationally change how that team works and potentially who's on it. And, the amount of time that they're going to be able to complete their work. So it's great to have a vision of the entire assembly line, but you got to be very aware of the people who are going to be working on it and their capacity for change and using this stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I really like Hugo, your note that it could be multiple different customer facing or internal facing or internal sale facing product knowledge base. And I'm curious to know, I never worked on the customer facing product knowledge base. I was working more like internally, but I'm curious to know, like, have you had a chance to create this internal customer facing product knowledge base and internal knowledge base? And did you had a chance to synchronize some of the data there, maybe like FAQ section or any other things? Can you please elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts here, which is one, and in the first instance of that, and I saw that at Farfetch, right, which is each one of them grows independently, right? So you'll have these three different levels and they'll grow independently because they have different needs, they have different concepts. Then in the second level, what you'll see is, for example, the connectivity between what the sales team is needing and what customers are needing, you then start connecting it, right? Because in that case, for example, we had domain customers, right? So it's customers platform customers, sorry, so their product is powered by our product, right? And so they need technical specs, they need information about how it works, how to integrate with everything. But then we have the knowledge base that is exactly for our customers, directly customer facing. And those platform customers actually have to have access to that as well to be able to use it, right? And in this case, it was super useful that they did it actually in Confluence, because Confluence has this great knowledge base structure where in the background you're doing documentation like we're used to doing in Confluence, but in the front end, right, what people are seeing are an FAQ section or this whole knowledge base that is structured for the user and answering specific questions or things like that. So it worked out pretty well. But again, it wasn't fully integrated because all of these are working independently. Getting to that integrated feel, I think, like Adam was saying, you need to reach a very high maturity level. Someone has to recognize that there could be a benefit in that. Or could there? That's another question, right? Maybe not. Maybe it's good to keep them separate. I guess it'll depend, because also the language changes, right? Between each of them. The language goes from very technical to very non-technical, right? Very user-friendly. So yeah, the language is completely different. I wouldn't ask an engineer to start writing, technical specs for a customer is going to be looking through the marketplace or anything like that. So
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm curious to know like how Pendo could help here. Like, is there a way how to connect customer success and other teams around the insights, or maybe like some of these highlights that will be important for customers, will be important for product managers and the product teams itself?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I've got a graphic actually, I think, in our next measure section. But
Do you want me to pull it, or you can let me pull it here? Okay.
yeah, so we can kind of jump to the end if you want to zoom in on our tech stack.
Mhm.
So yeah, basically what we're looking at here is if you look at, kind of Pendo, our own product, like I said, we're an analytics and app messaging tool. It also gets super meta because we use our own product for all of our product analytics and in-app messaging, which we're able to deliver to customers who are using our product and also internally. So we're able to see Pendo employees using Pendo to service our customers who are using Pendo. So a couple couple layers to that one. But when it comes to our own sort of internal knowledge bases, what we have is we've got our own sort of Pendo internal subscription, which easiest way to think about that is it's kind of just like a centralized kind of data bucket that's collecting all of
Mhm.
our user and behavior data from any of the applications that we have inside that subscription. So we have our Pendo subscription installed over Pendo, so we can get Pendo usage. And then we've also got it, in this case, installed over our Zendesk Help Center. So in this case, I'm able to get identified or anonymous user behavior data from both our Zendesk knowledge base and the Pendo product. It's the same identified users that are in the same data set.
Mhm.
And I'm able to very easily connect product usage to content usage. So tons of opportunity there for learning about our customers and usage of our external knowledge base. But for an internal product knowledge base standpoint, we also have employees identified and we know what they're doing in the product. We know how they're consuming all of the education that's available in our Zendesk Help Center. We can look for, patterns and outcomes and trends across Zendesk. And then for basically all of the third-party stuff where we don't have access to the code base, where we can't do like a traditional Pendo installation, we have another product called Adopt, which
Mhm.
basically is it's similar to Pendo, but it's got a completely different kind of installation and it's solving a different problem for employees, not end users. So we're able to get analytics data for usage of all of our third-party tools. So Jira, Confluent, Salesforce, GitHub. I mean, just to imagine any software company's tech stack. And we basically have product usage data and in-app messaging opportunities and insights into how all of that stuff is being done for all of the other products in our tech stack. So yeah, to put a bow on it, between Pendo and Adopts, we've got a fairly complete data set of how anybody at Pendo is using our product or using any of the other products in our tech stack.
This is
And
great. And I guess there's also opportunity to filter out all the requests or questions or like suggestions from the customers based on the user segment, like if it's like B2B, B2C, or like or specific user segment of like how they are using the app. So we could not only just get the sources, but also structure and like group them based on like specific ways of how we're structuring information, right? And it's all could be integrated.
yeah, we've got segmentation for users, of course, like deliberate targeting for pages, features, track event, any kind of users we want to carve up. And then the thing that gets me particularly excited from a content standpoint is being able to track page views and then also sort of cross-cut our page view analytics versus our segments
Mhm.
versus product usage, or for the internal use cases and Adopt, are folks really adhering to kind of processes and following prescribed funnels? Is there a problem? Do they need additional instructions? Are folks, are folks just not reading the process documentation and then struggling to complete the funnel? I think that's one of the questions I saw on the channel was, looking at kind of adoption of a knowledge base and being able to measure if folks are actually completing those processes and whether or not they actually consumed the documentation that you provided is it really, I think, kind of a critical step into understanding adoption of your knowledge base and beginning to collect the data to change what you need to change in order to improve adoption of the knowledge base. Can kind of jump down a content design loop and figure out the best way to present information and solve that problem. But it's a different topic.
Yeah. And maybe we could go through the questions. The first question is how to get people to adopt the product knowledge base. Sometimes you create the most relevant documents, but when people don't read, it makes no sense.
Yeah. If you can jump over to the notes, my notes, I've got just a couple bullets that touch on this.
Mhm.
So I love this question. This question is what gets me up in the morning, both for internal and external content. But the goal of content, really is to make sure that we're talking to the right person at the right place, at the right time, but also in the right way. So those are kind of table stakes. Like if you don't do those things, just looking at kind of like a content design, from like a content design, content adoption perspective, if you miss one of those things, like you just miss. Like there aren't a lot of near misses when it comes to getting someone's attention and getting them to actually read and understand something. Either you talk to them in the right way and you catch them in the right moment, or, it's like UI, UX design, they're just going to hit the X button and they're going to completely sidestep around it. And I mean, the same thing applies to internal knowledge base. If somebody's trying to, solve a problem or is doing things the way that they've always been done, and now we've got a new process that we've put in place, and the way they learn about and execute and follow that process is by going to a Confluence page, going 3 pages deep and following a bulleted list that's halfway through the document. That's just not an effective way to, catch them at the right time in the right way and get them to actually consume that process documentation. So where do you start and kind of figuring out how you're going to present information so that it's actually used? So, not new concepts. It's just thinking about it like a product. It's asking, the same questions and solving the same problems that we do when we're building new products. You want to kind of scroll up a little bit just to the one more, treating it like a content. It's just, who is our user? Really, what problem or what job to be done are they trying to solve? And then particularly, what is our measurable outcome? And depending on the answers to those questions, the best approach, the one that's going to get the greatest adoption and the result in the best behavior change, it's just going to depend. I think when you go through the exercise and understand your users and understand what they're trying to do and what their outcomes are and how they're actually going to do stuff, you'll see some common denominators, and it'll inform, your overall content strategy and information architecture. But you have to ask the question first if you want to start kind of doing it on purpose.
Yeah. And I feel like by working with other teams, most importantly, Adam, the note that you shared, I really love it, is that you need to perceive your product knowledge base as a product and think about the distribution channels as well. And some of the ways, like practical examples, is to set up internal newsletter and just sharing all the updates, having like release notes and all the things like, okay, like within the last 2 weeks, we've added these new sections. We changed these new ways of work or these new links to our testing environment so people could get access and test new features before they will go to the public, right? So like having this internal newsletter cadence and also having office hours open, like meetings for everyone to join and ask questions about the product knowledge base or maybe share the feedback. And also focusing more on setting up internal communities or maybe product knowledge based champions who will like share the impact of the product knowledge base and will focus on adopting their team, start using the product knowledge base as one of the practical examples here as well. We have another, yeah.
Yeah. So measurable outcome is a little tricky. Yes, that definitely is. And yeah, creating a digest for sales reps, expecting the entire all sales reps to read it, and figuring out what our success metric is for that one. Some observations that I've seen for just sort of consumption of internal content like that. If you look at like click through rates, in the actual amount that stuff is read. I'm going to pick on learning management systems a little bit, but one of the things that I've seen kind of consulting with like enterprise organizations where like an internal knowledge team will have manage an LMS and distribute stuff via email is like in those environments, like a 1% click-through rate on an email is incredible. And less than 1% of folks actually clicking through the email and consuming whatever content you've distributed through that channel is still pretty good. And that is not good enough for the adoption of kind of anything really. And that mechanism just isn't effective. So looking really, really critical about the distribution channels and the actual kind of click-through rate, adoption rate of those distribution channels, and being really critical of the conversion rates that you're getting. Again, treating it like a product. If you're expecting 100% of reps to read something and you're getting a 10% click-through rate on whatever it is you're distributing, then there's a fundamental problem in your distribution mechanism and you need to change it. As far as the actual, I mean, really looking for like a specific measurable goal, like a sales rep, in this case, the goal is not for them to consume content. The goal is for them to consume content and do some behavior. So if the goal of the digest is for them to be informed about product changes, to go in and test those product changes and to be able to, talk about those product changes with prospects, then the outcome of the digest isn't reading the digest. The outcome of the digest is like fingers on keyboards, performing actions in the product as they prepare their demos. And it's being able to go through and search through your Gong call transcripts and see if they're mentioning the new features, as they're refining their talk tracks based on the outcomes of those digests. So when we're measuring the success metrics for our digests, it's one is what is our actual adoption rate? How much are folks actually consuming it? And then what do we want them to do after using that digest? Are they doing those things? And I mean, just in that example, I mean, we saw three different kind of data points: the click-through rate for the content, the product usage for a rep, and auditing of Gong transcripts on calls. So as we kind of run through the analytics exercise and figure out where we're going to measure, you need to be able to measure stuff in all of those areas in order to ask and answer those questions.
Agree. Hugo, you just added a couple notes here. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, no, I just think I think what Adam mentioned and the whole thing of treating it like a product is spot on. And I love the 3 points he added there. I was just adding that if you can integrate the content that you've created in the knowledge base into the process as much as possible, people will adopt it a bit more, right? So obviously it's, if it's part of their day to day, they will feel a bit more comfortable using it. And then like you were saying, right, treat it like a website, treat it like a product where, how do you expect people to interact? If you had a blog, if you had an e-commerce website, you would find ways to measure how people are interacting with it, right? Or at least to extract some knowledge. So that's the thing. Try and figure that out. Kind of, what are the key points for you to measure that impact or measure the outputs? Yeah. So it was just that.
Agree. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. So we have a couple other things here so we had a question, what is the product knowledge base? So I think we were able to cover this up here, that we have different types of knowledge base itself. Regarding product knowledge base, you might have different variations here as well, as customer facing, internal facing, or internal sales facing. And here, by just reading out through all these notes and like some of the data points that you could share, you will able to understand that like we can cover the voice of the customer. We will cover there and document product approach, and which kind of rituals do we have as a team, as a product team. We could cover competitive intelligence and maybe links to other tools, or maybe integrated and synthesized information about the current trends, players, features, pricing, and market share, strategy and planning, organizational structure, product changelog, and product capabilities. By having all of that and like just adding more and more things based on your needs, this is the product knowledge base. And as we discussed before, it could be Confluence, it could be Coda, it could be other tools as well. So there are no limitations. The only thing, just to wrap up our how to organize the product knowledge base, I just wanted to highlight quickly Here are the examples of the private knowledge base information architecture that also might spark some interesting ideas on your own side. Then knowledge management roles. This is like speaking about like specifically knowledge management. We have different roles who might take like one specific person might take multiple roles as librarian, the person who is organizing and synthesizing and structuring all the information that is incoming or that we have already in place. Contributors, people who can contribute to the product knowledge base, sharing some interesting highlights or observations or new questions that we are getting from our customers or from the sales team. Area owners, if another interesting part where I saw like good adoption of the product knowledge base itself is having clear area ownership. So for example, if we're speaking about competitive intelligence, who is responsible for that? Who is the area owner for that? And if we have any questions or new contributions around that, we'll call like ask this specific person to review these materials and approve. And subject matter experts. This is the people not the ones who are owning usually, but they are good experts in this specific field and they could consult specific things within the product, within the knowledge base. And here, as we can see here, we have intake model. We discover insights, questions, or contributions. Then we go through the contribute, review, document, and release cycle. And then at the end, we have the distribution where it could be integrated externally, or we could create some trainings based on the knowledge or the learnings that we have. Or we could integrate it into the skill metrics, making sure that these new ways of work or new skills will be represented in our skill metrics that will help engineers, product managers, designers to set up the clear career path and know that, for example, if you would like to go from level 3 to level 4, here are the things that you need to know. And here are the links in our knowledge base that will help you out to grow. And the last part is not only about like covering the process of how to organize the product knowledge base, but also about the governance model, how you are releasing, how you're distributing all the updates regarding your product knowledge base, how you are tracking all the changes or the requests, all the questions, maybe in issue tracking system like Jira, and how you're capturing the feedback around the knowledge base itself. So I hope we answered most of the questions here. Who do you consider to be primary consumers of knowledge base? Are there separate knowledge base or distinct audiences? Yes, I feel like we answered this question. So the product knowledge base is more like for product teams, but we also have discipline-based knowledge bases where we can focus on specific practice like engineering, design, user research, and others. And speaking about the definition,
Fareed, I was going to add one note on that thing. So particularly as we look at, kind of folks really doubling down on product-led growth initiatives, and no secret, there's a recession and folks are being asked to kind of get more efficient. So what we really see is folks really kind of focusing on, I'd say, departments and teams that traditionally product focused, that aren't really traditionally walking that kind of product-led walk, rallying around the product and kind of turn, human interactions or external stuff really into product experiences. So to that end, we end up having basically customers for that internal knowledge base, that internal product knowledge base outside of product, outside of traditional product roles. And as folks sort of learn to rally around the product and create product experiences in order to hit their, departmental goals, whether it's CSTS, things like that, I think what we're noticing is that we've been building product and product experiences for a long time. There are some, solid kind of foundational ways of doing that. And teams that haven't traditionally had to work in a, design, research, iterate, test, repeat kind of loop are having to build those skills and adopt those types of methods. And how to do that in your organization should live in your internal product knowledge base. So as other teams are being asked to get more efficient and adopt these product-led methods, they're going to need to consume the processes and standards that you've got in your internal knowledge base in order to do that as quickly as possible. Long way of saying that the customers of your knowledge base might not be who you think they are over the past 6 months and over the next 6 months.
Totally agree. Hugo, would you like to go over some of your notes here I can pull it up into our feature board.
Yeah, just really quickly, if you zoom in on those first three at the top. So it was just my thinking around how I think about this kind of world, right? So this comes from my background in design. So I come from a design background, but funny enough, a great reference for me is, for example, atomic research in the sense of having a structured approach to how you handle things, right? So it's how you handle how the information it comes in, how it's processed, how it's synthesized, and then how it is then produced on the other end, right? Then the same thing with Polaris. Here, it's about democratizing it to the sense of you don't have only one owner of, who contributes to it. And so, finding ways how other people can contribute to it and that also everybody can, consume it as well. So it's two interconnected things, right? It's two frameworks used around research mostly. But in this case, I think that the thinking behind them is very valid here. And then the last one is, the how to make sense of any mess from Abby Covert. And she actually has her book completely free online, which is kind of cool because she takes a really simple approach to information architecture, right? About how you should structure it, the type of language and the taxonomy you use, and how you approach things, and how your concept of how something should be seen is different to what other people are expecting. So it's happened to me, right, where I put together this incredible set of documentation. It's incredible. Wow, and everybody says, I don't understand this part here. What are you saying here? And people get lost, right? And so you can assume, and this is kind of helpful in that sense, right? It's about making things findable, finding it useful, but in a simple way. Yeah, I mean, it's literally a lesson per page. It's something you can read in almost an afternoon. But I love the book at the time when I read it. And then below, I've just shared kind of how we had it at Farfetch, right? So we had 3 main user types, which was the internal teams, platform customers, and the end users. What the objectives were basically for each of these around the type of information they're expecting. And then, the kind of structure that potentially these knowledge bases had, and yeah, that was basically it. That was,
Yeah,
so I
thank you
won't go
for
through all the
sharing.
details. People can read if they want afterwards. They have access to the board.
Yeah, and please feel free to, I guess, maybe reach out to you on LinkedIn, right? Or if they have any questions as well.
Of course. Anytime.
Great. So, and the last section that we have is how to actually measure the impact. Oh, another thing that I missed is that when we are speaking about the adoption, for us also, it helps to have these review sessions with area owners. So we had a bi-weekly call with all the area owners where we just reviewed all the materials. So first of all, they are familiar with the new things that we've been adding, and also other area owners could share some interesting practices on how to document things more properly and more clearly. For example, answer the question when to use this new ways of work, or is there any template or deliverable example that people could utilize as well? So I will just add here review sessions with area owners. Great. So let's go into the last topic here, how to measure impact. Again, I'm biased. I love Coda. So that's why I'll just share some of them and ways how you can pull some of the metrics around the adoption. There are some extensions for Confluence that you will provide the same information, similar information about what kind of spaces or talks are the most active ones. And if you will go into specific document, you can see how many sessions, how many views you got, and how many views you got for this specific document or specific space in Confluence. Also, there are enterprise level, page level analytics that will help you to see, for example, a lot of people are interested in competitive intelligence and they're opening and they're pretty active there. And here at the bottom, I just added a couple ideas, again, that might spark some ideas on your side, which kind of metrics you could measure as a part of product knowledge base. Again, all this, we could measure a lot of things, but it's important to understand why we are measuring. And by mapping all these metrics to our goals, company goals, we could understand what exactly it's important, at this point of time, what's important for us to measure and how these specific numbers will help us to tell the story. And here we have 4 sections: documentation value metrics, where we have basic metrics like documentation views, documentation reactions. This is another interesting metric that we could capture because it will say not only like how people are reading, but also are they reacting somehow to the documentation? Do they like it or not? Like, is there any like feedback loops in place? Documentation performance metrics, time to find. This is a great aspirational metric, but I never figured out how to do that. Maybe there will be some more advanced metrics because like this is the metric that I'm more excited about, like how much time people are actually spending on finding and how we can decrease this time. Maybe we need to change the structure or maybe we need to think about our taxonomy and the tagging system to improve the search experience. Time to comment, partners approval rates. This is about the ways if we have something related to other departments or other teams like sales or any other things, we could ask them to not only read materials, but also approve or review these materials as a part of the checklist. And most importantly, the easiest one is user satisfaction, employee satisfaction, improvement. So we could, in the simple start, we can just send the surveys every month, asking the same most important questions, how people are satisfied with the current product knowledge base. And based on your current goals, you could ask specific questions on like how much time they are spending approximately on searching information and other things that you could measure right away. The next one is documentation distribution metrics, more about the way if you are sharing any news or newsletter or a message on Slack or Microsoft Teams, what was the reach of this message? How we could improve that? Do we need to think about other communication channels? Documentation adoption rate, the number of users or team who actively using the documentation. The release cycle, how often are we releasing or how often are we adding new things into our product knowledge base? And speaking about the governance model, more metrics around issue tracking, issue resolution time. What if someone has to contribute or ask like specific question and we tracked it as a part of intake model in Jira? We could also calculate these numbers as a part of how much time it took specific like product team to resolve this issue. Or feedback response, request volume, how many requests we're getting and what kind of types of requests we're getting. Request resolutions. Did we close the ticket or like question from the person or we couldn't do that because we had some limitations or we don't have enough knowledge around specific topics. So all these metrics, again, as we spoke about, like we could measure a lot of things. It's important to map such metrics with your goals, making sure that these numbers will help you tell a story.
Can I add a disclaimer here very
Sure.
quickly, which is, I'll be honest, and not all of us have the privilege, or most companies won't have the privilege that Adam has, where he has something implemented that has metrics. And generally, if it has to have an extra investment, chances are it will not be a priority in terms of investment for metrics, right? Because I mean, anybody who's working on the knowledge base will find it interesting and will want to have these metrics. But in most I know I asked for a Confluence metrics a while ago because I don't have admin rights, and I'm still waiting for that. And so just because, they don't make it easy. They don't make it easy, this part. I'll be honest.
Yeah, 100%. Adam, do you have any like highlights, observations to share?
Yeah, no, I mean, Hugo's spot on. I mean, I think one of the distinct advantages that I have being at Pendo is being able to, we don't have to pay for our own product. So I can install Pendo over every single customer facing knowledge base that we have and gather all of that information. And there's there's never been an extra application fee. There's never been an increase in our MAU count. We've had to, justify in budget. Fortunately, that puts me in a position to go in and have that opportunity and figure out the value of that type of stuff and help communicate it out to the community. I'm really trying hard to not sound like a sales pitch and just kind of show what's possible. Externally, it's really easy to connect it to dollars and, support deflection. And, our marketing team has been able to show correlations between consumption of our knowledge base and, warm leads and stuff like that. But being able to measure, connects to dollars and bottom line in some fairly straightforward ways once you have the opportunity and start looking at it. What we're, kind of finding with our Adopt product is that taking the same level of scrutiny with your own sort of third-party tech stack and the way you're using it, the way you're adopting and using those products and those licenses is just, I mean, just haven't been able to do it. So it's just not that easy. So there aren't necessarily teams that are investing in doing that in fairly straightforward ways. As we move kind of up into enterprise organizations, we do have, you know, business analysis and optimization teams who are looking very critically about how folks across the company are using internal products and using workflows and oftentimes the way that they're able to kind of measure and understand the impact and understand the adoption for different things can be difficult or impossible to measure, or maybe a little bit hand wavy, depending on how much observation versus objective data they're able to collect about what people are doing. I mean, trying not to sound like a sales pitch, but ultimately that's the problem that Adopt solves is being able to understand what folks are doing in single apps, cross apps, and being able to use messaging, being able to message somebody in Salesforce as they're going through filling out an opportunity and walk them through a new process if you need to, versus having to try to hit them in an email or hitting them in a lunch and learn or something and notifying them about that thing. So exercising that muscle of treating it like a product, defining who your user is, what you want them to do, helping them do it and measuring the outcome. I mean, we do it as product teams. We know that's the way to do it, and exercising that muscle on usage of third-party tools and consumption of our internal knowledge base is just, it's new. It's new, and understanding and paying for it is kind of the first hurdle.
Yeah, 100%. So let's do a quick recap of all the things that we've done here. We spoke about the reasons why it's important to invest in product knowledge base. It will help you to be more structured and well organized. That will decrease amount of risk of errors within your product teams and will hopefully decrease time to knowledge. We also went through the exercise and covered how to organize, what will be the right information as this lecture, what will be the process around supporting the knowledge management approach. And we went through the metrics. And as we understand here is that product knowledge base is still early in the industry wide. We see that a lot of teams don't have enough interest or investments on their side only, but Barış, his team is interested in investing more into product knowledge base. Most of the participants, they are strongly disagree that they have enough resources to focus more and invest more into product knowledge base. And speaking about the product knowledge base mastery levels, we can see that most of us are very in early stages yet. But hopefully our discussions help you to spark some new ideas. Maybe you will set up new OKRs for the next quarter. And yeah, thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Hugo and Adam, for sharing your notes and observations. It was a great time to speak with you. And the recording will be shared shortly within a week. So thank you very much for your time and see you next time.
Thanks. It was a pleasure being part of the conversation.